Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. This week, we feature a conversation that will help marketers fine-tune their playbooks for the year. Joining us from Singapore is Rohit Dadwal, the Managing Director of MMA for the APAC region. Comprised of over 800 member companies globally and 14 regional offices, the MMA is a marketing trade association that brings together the full ecosystem of marketers, tech providers, and sellers. So what do marketers need to be cognizant of in 2023? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Rohit Dadwal. Rohit, welcome to Melt. Now, almost every day for the last couple of months, we've been news about layoffs, a recession, economic downturn. What's your prognosis for the APAC region in 23?
Thank you for having me here, Suresh. Not an easy question to start with. We went through a turmoil with COVID and there had to be some repercussions of that. Unfortunately, the economic downturn, which was expected after COVID, didn't hit as much as we thought it would. But these are the after effects of that. I think the main challenge, is not so much about the macroeconomic downturn of what's happening in the economic state or the consumption pattern, but the cost of capital. Because of the technical recession, if you will, 6-8 months back in US, the Fed increased the interest rates. And the cost of capital has become so expensive all of a sudden that people are starting to feel the pain for that. And these layoffs also that you mentioned, if you look at it closely, these layoffs are pretty much all in the technology sector. They are not in many other sectors. And that is the boom that we saw in technology in the last 4-5 years, especially fueled by COVID. This is an opportunity for them to course correct and look at the way they were looking at business. Cost of capital was almost nothing. They expanded without realizing the pain of the cost of capital. And it is an effect of that. It is a reality. We cannot deny it, but it's pretty much, I personally feel, is limited to the technology segment.
Okay, that's quite an optimistic note. In terms of the impact on marketers in India, how is MMA helping these marketers navigate this sort of tectonic shift in the tech sector?
So that's very interesting. I think from an MMA perspective, our entire ethos is to help build what the marketing of the future would be. It is fueled by MarTech. Technology plays a very important segment of that today. And going forward, it is going to drive the so-called marketing and advertising. So what we are trying to do is to help the marketers understand what that shift is going to be, how MarTech is going to become an important element, and technology will drive most of the decision making around advertising. So all the projects that we are working on, whether it's attribution related project, brand safety project, privacy project, organization restructure, how marketers have to think about what their organization should look like with the advent of technology as the underlying pillar for marketing and advertising. I think those are the fundamental projects that we are working on. We believe if we can build the methodologies, the frameworks, the guidelines for the marketers to understand these, the incoming Web 3.0, the metaverse, what does that really mean for the marketers? How do they evolve building those into their capabilities? Because today, what we understand and what we know is marketers don't have a full grasp on these technologies, nor does the industry at a large. But somebody needs to help build the framework for that. And that is pretty much our focus for helping marketers navigate what the future is going to be for advertising.
Rohit, you've been pretty bullish about the Indian marketing ecosystem. Do you continue to be bullish?
Yes.
Give us a quick SWOT analysis. What is one strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat that you see in the Indian marketing ecosystem?
The consumers, 1.3 billion people. That's the strength. That we have not yet seen the consumption that these people are capable of driving. The US was driven purely by consumer consumption. India's yet to see the consumer consumption, the so-called middle class or the emerging middle class. A 600 million people population is yet to drive that consumption. I think that is yet to happen, and that is starting to happen now with the advent of the reach of a lot of the services and facilities to the rural India, which was beyond them. 10 years back, I remember we used to call media dark places in India. Those don't exist today. If they don't exist today, then they are the ones who are going to drive the consumption. So marketeers have to be bullish to reach those 100 million, a billion people, which they didn't have access to in the manner that they have now. They always had access, but it was not easy. The distribution, the supply chain was never easy. The consumers didn't understand what was available for them. They didn't understand the price points that it was available for them. They didn't have the opportunity of exploring the mass value of the products or the possibilities of those products that can enhance and build their life. Now they can.
We have a strength and an opportunity both there. What's the weakness and the threat?
I think weakness lies in the same thing, the distribution, the capability. Understanding the capability of how and what needs to be done for these people, how the products and needs to be amplified for them, how they need to be fine-tuned and built for these people. I think the marketers still need to understand the nuances of catering to that depth or that level of the consumers, and understanding what they are, what they would be happy with, what they need, and what they desire. And I think combining all of that is a challenge for every marketer.
You're painting a fairly rosy picture of the domestic consumption story. What's the one thing that could threaten all of this?
I think the threat is a macro threat, as we just started outlining at the very beginning. The threat is really driven by the global macroeconomic conditions. It is driven by socio-political landscape and the factor that there is a technical recession, as we say in Europe and US. It will have its legs, which will come into Asia. And I'm not only optimistic about India, I think I'm optimistic all of Asia. I think Asia is going to be the driving force for consumption in the next decade or two, not just Europe. I think Europe and US have gone past that now.
So what is your vision for the other markets in for MMA APAC in 2023? We keep hearing stories of Vietnam, for instance, doing really well.
Yes.
So give us a sense of what's going on in APAC.
As I said, I think I'm very, very optimistic, not just optimistic about the consumption, the growth of these markets. These are all emerging markets. Indonesia, 400 million people market, just starting to get to know the world. Vietnam was and has been politically a suppressed market, if you will. It has its legacy of China and so on and so forth, the war with US, and they are now starting to come out of it, and they have now been exposed to the world. So is Thailand in that particular manner, and some of the other smaller regional countries. It's a very motherhood statement, but I think internet is really what is driving that force. The reach and the capability, the ability for the entire population of those countries, like in India, as I alluded to earlier, dark media India, etc., does not exist, and therefore that possesses a huge opportunity for all these markets. The production, the manufacturing is all in this part of the world. The leverage that these countries can drive from learning from that manufacturing and capability, which they have been doing for the world, they now can do it for themselves at a much leverage cost. That's an opportunity for marketers to build on and then serve the consumers in those respective markets.
What are some of the objectives or targets that you've set for MMA itself in 2023?
2023 is really navigating the new wave of AI and metaverse. To us, those are the two key components. I think what we've just recently seen in the last 3 months with OpenAI, what we've seen with metaverse, what we've seen with some of the virtual reality, virtuality, etc. I think those are nice buzzwords. It's not real today, but it is going to be real very soon. And as we know, technology leapfrogs itself within a few months and few years. And that is what we are looking at. And so from an MMA perspective, how does that build into the core of advertising and marketing? As I said at the very beginning, we need to build the framework. We need to build the structure of what that is. So to understand what that means, the fundamentals of research around what it is, white papers on what the capabilities are, use cases, case studies, and more importantly, I think, Suresh, it is really about leveraging the consumers' understanding of what they would want to do. So the marketeers really need to align with that. In the last 15 years, if there's something that we should have all learned by now, it is the consumers who are driving the growth. It is not really being fueled by advertisers or marketeers.
So, Rohit, give me one trend or innovation that you think is extremely important for marketers to know, but is not getting enough attention.
I think attribution. The fact that everything can be attributed, every dollar spent can be attributed and can be mapped to sales and growth. I think that is still not being understood completely. We are still in the Web 2.0 era of following the eyeballs,
Spray and
consumers,
pray
spray and pray. I think we need to be far more targeted. We have the capabilities, we have the technology, we have the tools. How do we start adapting to that? How do we start leveraging them to make it profound for the consumers, and in return your sales and your own growth, because you can map it now.
Okay, so attribution is the one trend that should get more attention but is not. Now, let me ask you the reverse question. What's the one buzzword that's been overused in the last couple of years and should be on its way out?
There is a lot that is happening but not being leveraged in the manner that it should be. I don't think so there's any technology in the last 20 years, forget last 2 years or 5 years, that has not proven itself to be worthwhile if exploited well. I don't think so. Having said that, I think the whole notion about first party data, understanding that is something which is very important. It's a buzzword that people keep talking about, marketeers and publishers, and GDPR and everything is happening around it, but nobody is really, I think, focused on implementing it in the manner that it should be to help serve the consumer.
Rohit, you've said before that one of the biggest challenges that marketers have had to face and have to adapt to is the consumer's ability and the consumer's voice that they suddenly seem to have acquired. How has MMA helped marketers address this topic of helping marketers understand the consumer's voice?
So it's very interesting you asked me that, Suresh. I think one of the things that we've been able to do is to present the use cases which have really helped marketeers sell better to the consumers. Bringing those use cases to the forefront, sharing that best practices with the other marketers, with the other markets, other countries, regions, I think has been a core competence that we've been able to build. It's been fueled largely by our efforts around our awards program called Smarties. And those are the case studies, those are the learnings which we can then take to the other marketeers and share with them and let them know what is the true potential of a particular small piece of technology in certain cases versus a broad landscape change where the consumers are trying to drive. For example, social versus AI. Those are two very distinct opportunities, but they both have their own capabilities. QR code, for example, was done and dusted with 10 years back. SMS, people used to disregard SMS 10 years back. They said SMS is dead. But today, every transaction is verified using SMS. If you could do that, if you can properly use those technologies, I think that is where we would want everybody to understand each technology, its capability, and then leveraging it for their own benefit.
Rohit, I've seen a couple of your earlier keynote speeches, and one of your favorite quotes seems to be, today's consumer wants to talk to the brands that cares about her. Now, what specifically do you mean by this care?
So that quote actually goes something like this. I don't care for what the marketeers say. I care what they do for me. That is really important. And that's the new age consumer I'm talking about. They understand. They understand what they want. They understand what they need. They are no longer wowed by a great TV serial with a influencer or an actor. They don't really care for that. They really care as a consumer. What have you done for me? What have you done for the society? I think we are getting into that transitional space where every consumer, especially the new age consumer, cares for the society, cares for the environment, and they see those brands living up to those expectations, not just the product that they are selling, but overall environment, overall society, etc. So that is where, and it translates into that consumer habit of being careful, being aware, and being able to provide for that.
It seems a little odd, Rohit, a brand that makes an FMCG product, or recently the Mahindra campaign we've seen, which seems to care about or ask questions about what have you done for society. Why have brands suddenly become the custodians of taking care of society and of the environment? When did this change occur, and what do you make of it?
I think this change was in the making over the last 2 decades, Suresh. I think it's just the awareness of the consumers asking the tough questions to these marketers, saying, what are you doing? If you are planning to sell your product, how are you helping retain the environment, retain the society, retain the values that we all care for? Because somewhere, because of the awareness of a lot of these things, again with the help of internet, with the help of social, etc., they also started realizing that the product that they are buying into is also not very environmentally friendly, for example. And then they start to question that, and that's where this trend of marketeers starting to own that space. We've seen multinational big FMCG companies around the world taking on environment sustainability, because if they don't, and if they don't really listen to the consumer voice, they will be left out. Consumers are do have a choice to go with brands that they feel care for the environment, care for them. And today is not an environment where there's only one FMCG brand that is available. You have 10 brands and they can easily move around and impact the net margins or even the stock market pricing of these companies.
Let me move on to another topic. What have been the
Sure.
ramifications of hyper-personalization for modern marketers?
To me, the biggest value of personalization has been to be able to cater to the needs of the consumer, fine tune to that personalized cohort, if you will, or a group of people, if not individual as Suresh. We've not yet gone to that level of personalization. I think all the technology and capabilities those technologies possess can lead us there. That's what I was alluding to earlier, that we've not truly exploited all of them. But with that also comes the responsibility for the consumer to be aware as to what they are asking for. Because when they ask for that level of personalization, they are giving up something which is called privacy. And they are not aware of it. They don't understand the ramification of that level of data which goes out. It's a catch 22. You need to be aware of it. At the same time, you demand something based on that, not knowing what you are giving up for it. So I think that there's a fine balance, and education is the only way this can be solved. And I think policy making is a key driver for that.
All right, Rohit, with that, let's come to the next hot topic of today. Artificial intelligence, especially generative artificial intelligence. What is the MMA view of AI and its capabilities?
I think that's the next horizon. We are all looking forward to it. I think it's only going to enhance the way we have all done advertising and marketing. It will help fine tune what we've learned from a cognitive ability to an understanding subconscious level ability from a consumer perspective, but added advantage of creativity, content, marrying the two and being able to decipher what really is the way forward, derived out of the intelligence, the generative intelligence, or the ability to be able to predict some of these campaigns, if you will, in a marketing environment. But from a consumer perspective, also understanding the behavior will be very important. I think it will only add to the overall value of building growth for the consumers.
Do you think marketers and brand leaders are warming up to the use of AI, especially for creatives, for instance? You can just write the brief and AI will generate the imagery for you.
In days to come, yes. I think it's little premature to say that that is the way to do it. It will still need to be read. It'll still need to go through the emotional challenges, the socio-economic benefits. I don't think so the AI is going to do that for us at any point in time, anytime soon. To understand the nuances from behavior perspective is still something that will need to be done by humans. But it'll aid the growth or specialization or the impact of those creatives to a large extent, which will drive more specific, more value-oriented content to advertisers. It will give opportunity to do a lot more creatives in a lot shorter period of time, targeting to the earlier point that we were talking about, personalization.
Let me ask you the flip side of the question. If you were running an agency today, an advertising and marketing agency, would you be a bit worried that AI could replace you and your capabilities, both in terms of copy, imagery, strategy?
And no, I won't be worried, because that is just one function. It is rendering some elements of the total package. It's not delivering the total package. And that has to still be done by humans. It will aid. It may give me an opportunity, if I'm running an agency, to be able to take on 10 jobs versus 5, which I could do right now with my core strength or the human capital that I have. I could do 20 with the same capital, because a lot of the basic legwork is now going to be done by creative. So I may able to enhance my capabilities, my exposure to the market.
Okay, final question for you, Rohit. Let's do some future gazing. Let's say the year is 2033, 10 years from now.
Wow.
And we're looking at the marketer of the future. Will she be a human? Will she be completely AI, or a human AI hybrid?
I think it's a human AI hybrid. It's an Android in my view. It is something which will take the best of both the worlds, marry it into what we think is the future to cater to the consumers, to be able to deliver on the value of the brand. At the same time, looking at the expectations and the values of the consumers, and being able to drive the best optimal usage of the media that needs to be used for selling the product that you need to sell.
Right now, what's the favorite piece of technology that you carry with you everywhere?
GPT. Chat GPT.
All right.
That's it. I'm just playing around with it every day, trying to learn, trying to ask questions which I would have never asked. I think this is the future of how you get information. This is the future of where you get information and how you best deliver that information to the purpose that it needs to be. So I think Chat GPT for the next 10 years is the way to go. OpenAI, not Chat GPT, but it's the way to go.
The OpenAI ecosystem.
Yes.
All right, Rohit Dadwal. Thank you very much for talking to us at Melt.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm at Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.